Chapter 12. The next day, and the day after, Tom spent all his time near the courthouse, hoping to hear some good news about Muff Potter. He wanted to go in, but forced himself to stay out. Huck was having the same experience. They tried to avoid each other. At the end of the second day, it was clear that there was no hope for poor Potter. Everybody was sure that he was the murderer. Tom couldn't sleep that night. He went out and came to bed through the window. He was very excited, and he fell asleep late at night. All the people of the town gathered in front of the courthouse the next morning. It was the great day. The jury got in the courtroom and took their places. Soon, Potter, pale and hopeless, was brought in, with chains upon him, and seated where all the curious eyes could see him. Injun Joe was there too, as the prosecution witness. He had already repeated his description of events. There was another pause, and then the judge arrived. A witness was called who said that he had seen Muff Potter washing in the river early in the morning that day, and that he immediately ran away. After some more questions, the prosecutor said, "Take the witness." The prisoner raised his eyes for a moment, but dropped them again when his lawyer said, "I have no questions to ask him." The next witness said that the knife had been found near the dead body of Dr. Robinson. The prosecutor said, "Take the witness." "I have no questions to ask him," Potter's lawyer said. A third witness said he had often seen Potter use that knife. "Take the witness." Potter's lawyer refused to ask him questions again. The people in the courtroom were worried. Was that lawyer planning to throw away his client's life without an effort? Then the prosecutor said, "We think that we have proved that the prisoner is guilty. We rest our case here." Poor Potter put his face in his hands. No one could say a word. Women were crying. Then Potter's lawyer stood up and said, "Your Honor, at the beginning of the trial, we planned to prove that our client did this terrible thing under the influence of alcohol. We have changed our mind. We will prove that our client is not guilty at all." Then he said, "Call Thomas Sawyer." A look of surprise appeared in every face in the courtroom, including Potter's. Everyone looked at Tom. He stood up and took his place next to the judge. The boy was frightened. "Thomas Sawyer, where were you on the 17th of June about midnight?" Tom looked at Injun Joe's cruel face and could not say a word. After a few moments, however, the boy got a little of his strength back and managed to put enough of it into his voice to make part of the courtroom hear. "In the graveyard." "A little louder, please. Don't be afraid. You were in the graveyard." Injun Joe smiled. "Were you anywhere near Williams's grave?" "Yes, sir." "Speak a little louder. How near were you?" "Near as I am to you." "Where were you exactly?" "Behind the trees that grow near the grave." Injun Joe's smile disappeared. "Anyone with you?" "Yes, sir. I went there with—" Wait a moment, don't mention your companion's name. We will say it later. Did you carry anything there with you?" Tom hesitated. "Speak, my boy. The truth is always best. What did you take there?" "Only a dead cat." There was a short laughter in the room. "We will give to the court the skeleton of that cat. Now, my boy, tell us everything that happened, Tell it in your own way, and don't be afraid." Tom began, first slowly, but then more and more easily. Everyone was looking at him and listening to every word he said. When the story was close to the end, Tom said, "The doctor hit Muff Potter on the head, and Potter fell. And then Injun Joe took Muff's knife and jumped towards the doctor and—" At that moment, Injun Joe jumped through the window and ran away. Tom was a hero again. His name even appeared in St. Petersburg's newspaper. During those days, Tom was happy that he had saved Potter's life. But his nights were full of horror. All his dreams were about Injun Joe. Nothing could make the boy to go out at night. Poor Huck felt the same. Tom had told the whole story to the lawyer the night before the great day of the trial, and Huck was afraid that Injun Joe could learn about his part in that business, though he never said a word in court. Potter's lawyer said he would keep quiet about him, but what of that? Half the time, Tom was afraid Injun Joe would never be found. The other half, he was afraid he would be. He was sure the murderer would come back to town to take revenge. But time passed and Injun Joe was not found. One of the best detectives came to St. Petersburg from St. Louis, looked around and shook his head. He found nothing and soon went home. Finally, the boys started to forget their fear. There comes a time in every boy's life when he feels a strong wish to go somewhere and dig for hidden treasure. Tom had this wish one day too. He found Huck Finn and shared his thoughts with him. Huck liked the idea. He was always ready to have some fun. "Where shall we dig?" said Huck. "Oh, most anywhere." "Why is it hidden all around?" "No, of course it isn't. The treasure is hidden in special places, Huck. Sometimes on islands, sometimes under an old dead tree, but mostly under the floor in haunted houses." "Who hides it?" "Why, robbers, of course, don't you know?" "I don't know. I wouldn't hide it. I'd spend it and have a good time." "So would I, but robbers don't do that way. They always hide it and leave it there." "Don't they come to get it anymore?" "No, they think they will, but they usually forget the place or they die. Anyway, it lies there a long time until somebody finds an old yellow paper that tells how to find the treasure. Have you one of these papers, Tom?" "No." "Well then, how are you going to find the treasure?" "They always bury it under a haunted house, or on an island, or under a dead tree. Well, we've tried Jackson's Island a little, and we can try it again sometime. And there's the old haunted house up the hill, and there are many dead trees there, too." "Is it under all of them?" "No." "Then how shall we know which one to choose?" "We'll dig everywhere." "Why, Tom, it'll take all summer." "Well, what of that? Imagine that you find a brass pot with $100, or an old wooden box full of diamonds. How's that?" Huck looked interested. "That's good enough for me. Just give me the $100, and I don't want any diamonds." "All right, but you better not throw off on diamonds. Some of them can cost $20 each, but no cheaper than $1. "Is that so?" "Certainly. Anybody will tell you that. Haven't you ever seen one, Huck?" "I don't remember." "Oh, kings have hundreds of them." "Well, I don't know any kings, Tom." "You can see many of them in Europe, like that old humpbacked Richard." "Richard? What's his other name?" "He didn't have any other name. Kings have only a first name." "Well, if they like it, Tom, all right, but I don't want to be a king and have only just a first name. But say, where are you going to dig first?" Well, I don't know. Let's start under that old dead tree on the hill. I agree. Say, Huck, if we find a treasure, what are you going to do with your share? Well, I'll have a pie and a glass of soda every day, and I'll go to every circus that comes to our town. I'm sure I'll have a good time. Well, aren't you going to save any of it? Save it? What for? To have something to live on. Oh, that's no use. My father will come back to this town someday and take my money from me. And what are you going to do with your share, Tom? I'm going to buy a new drum and a sword and a red necktie and a puppy and get married. Married? That's right. Tom, are you in your right mind? Wait, you'll see. Well, that's the most foolish thing you could do. Look at my father and mother. Fight, they used to fight all the time. I remember very well. The girl I'm going to marry won't fight. Tom, I think they're all the same. You'd better think about it first. What's the name of the girl? I'll tell you sometime, not now. All right, only if you get married, I'll be more lonely than ever. No, you won't. You'll come and live with me.